to the podcast, the Post Boys Podcast. Join Gary and Ian talking movies.
Night of the Demon.
Yes, or as they say, Curse of the Demon in the USA.
Yeah. But Curse of the Demon in the USA was a shortened version of Night of the Demon, was it?
Yes.
There was quite crucial scenes that were taken out.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff in the houses and, the background was taken out, and of course, based on M.R. James casting the runes, which, when you think about runes, I always think about the either bone tablets or little, dominoes, rather than being written on a piece of parchment and stuff like that, which...
Yeah. What's your first impression or nostalgic introduction to Night of the Demon? Yeah.
Well, I think, like most people, I stumbled across it on the TV. You would say it's a black and white horror. You come across it and you think, yeah, black and white horror. Set in the 50s. How scary can that be? But when you watch it, it slowly gets under your skin, and it's creepy and it's scary, and it's extremely modern if you think about it. It goes at a fairly quick pace, and I think there are a lot of things that we now take for granted, but that was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah. So my first recollection of Night of the Demon was very young, watching my portable TV in my bedroom one night. I think it was on, was it BBC or something? It was on about back 11 or 10 or 10:30, 11 o'clock.
I would say it was probably, obviously over the years it's probably appeared on Channel 4, but probably originally it was shown on BBC, and in actual fact, I'm sure did they not have one of those, was it in the late 70s, early 80s, they had the Radio Times split cover and they did a horror double bill. And I'm sure one of the Radio Times cover has that image of the demon on it. So it must have been, that was probably where it was originally on the telly sometime in the kind of late 70s, and then obviously people have caught on, because people say, oh, this is one of the great horrors. And, on the surface you think, yeah, what? And it's not till you watch it and watch all of it and you think, oh yeah, I understand it now.
Seemingly, it's one of Scorsese's. It's in Scorsese's top 10 horror movies. So that's saying something, is it?
Well, that's it. It's menacing and it's creepy, and there's lots of things which well, for instance, there's the séance scene, which at first it seems comedic. That what's the name? Mr. Meek by that Reginald Beckwith, who's
Reginald Beckwith. He's one of these character actors that you see in loads of things.
Yes, like so he's usually playing a priest or a minister or a vicar. No, so a vicar, I should say, and it's typical that kind of vicar.
I think he was had a small part in one of the James Bond movies in the 60s as well.
Yes.
Was it Thunderball? Was it, or
yeah?
Was it the start where in that big massive hall with the table? He was one of the people there. I think
it could be something like that. And as I say, without skipping ahead, obviously Ken Adam did the production design.
That's another. That's probably why the film looks quite good.
Yeah, I stumbled across a colour version of it, and I looked at it, and if you look at it inside the Carswell's house, that does look like those early interiors in, say, like from Rush for Love, or that, and you think, oh yeah, that the tiles on the floor, the chandelier. I thought, yeah, that does look like a Ken Adam. But anyway, yes, the séance, that cherry ripe, that song.
Cherry ripe. Ah!
But
what was that? Was that a real song? Was it? I believe it was.
Oh, that's it. But also, when he goes into the trance, he starts as like a Native American, or as they say, a Red Indian at that time, and then he goes into this Scots accent, but the Scots accent is bad, but it's bad but creepy, because you think, is it because they couldn't get somebody who could do a Scots accent, or is it the spirit trying to remember and know what it was like to do a Scots accent? And that's creepy. And then we have the child, saying, mummy, mummy, and that's creepy. And it reminded me of in The Exorcist, when you hear all the different voices coming out to Pazuzu, and it's that thing about, because you think it's going to be like, tea and candles when they do that seance, and all of a sudden this is unexpected. All these voices start coming out, and then you hear Maurice Denham, which once again, he's another huge British character actor, did the voice, all the animals for Animal Farm. He's been in countless productions, films. If you don't recognise the face, you certainly recognise the voice. He was in, what was it called? He was in the second Amicus Horror, which was the Torture Garden. And he's playing in an episode called Enoch, which is about a cat, a demon he traps to get some gold. And his son-in-law comes and says to his uncle, where's the gold? Where's the gold? He says, no, I'm not going to tell you. And he's got heart pills. And he's like, if you don't tell me, you won't get your heart pills. So he doesn't give him the heart pills. He tells him, but he doesn't get the heart pills. And it's about a cat that needs brains to feed on. And this is like 1967. It's really, really atmospheric, because he has to go into his uncle's basement to dig up and finds this coffin. And he opens this coffin and there's gold, but then this cat comes out. And it's a really atmospheric horror. But not as atmospheric as the Night of the Demon. Anyway.
That scene you're talking about where Maurice Denham plays Professor Harrington,
yes,
in the movie. By this time he's already dead, because he gets killed at the beginning of the movie. And but that soundbite when he says, what was it?
It's in the trees.
Yeah, it's in the trees.
It's well, yes, because that soundbite. Because if you don't know the film, you might know it's used in Kate Bush's
Hounds of Love. Yeah,
Hounds of Love.
Yeah, but Kate Bush, another one who loves that movie. So
that's yeah, and it's as I say, it only gets better with age. It's a brilliant film full of jump scares, full of fantastic performances. I mean, obviously, it's, I think black and white probably suits ghost stories more than colour. As you say, you've got like, what have we got? The Haunting from 1963. You've got The Innocents in 1961. You've got, obviously, like the Queen of Spades, but you've got the Night of the Eagle, which was called Burn Witch Burn, with Richard Matheson wrote the script. I don't know if you've seen that. That's got... who was the actor who played? It was in Jason King. He was Peter Wingard. Is it Peter Wingard?
Yeah.
Yes. That Night of the Eagle. It's almost. It's where he's an academic professor, and people in the university are jealous that he's getting promotion. Somebody in the university puts a witch's curse on him, but he doesn't realise that his wife is an early practicing witch as well. And the whole film is almost a bit like the Night of the Demon, trying to protect him and trying to break the curse. Obviously, there's what's the other one? Whistle Now Will Come. Another M.R. James. That was Michael Hordern. That was extremely scary.
Yeah, that's like probably just under an hour long, was it?
Yes.
But that was black and white as well.
That was black and white, and people think that was a ghost story for Christmas, but it wasn't. I think it was made separate, and it gets kind of lumped in because of all the M.R. James. And that, if you haven't seen that is, oh my God, I remember the first time I saw it, because you've got the sound drops out and it mixes with the speed of the film, and that ending, when you really do think you're looking at a ghost, when the bed sheet or the nightshirt starts to go up and on its own, but I think Jonathan Miller must have did something with the speed of the film, or the speed of the shutter, because you're looking at it and I think, oh, that's a ghost, But that's M.R. James, the original material, that idea of people looking for an ancient book or an ancient manuscript and then get in over their head, and then disaster happens. As I say, just like Night of the Demon with Dr. Yeah, it is Dr.
Holden, Professor Harrington and Dr. Holden. Was
Dr.
it?
Holden, and of course the baddie Dr. Is it Dr. Carswell?
Just Julian Carswell.
Oh, Julian Carswell with a K.
Yeah, which is obviously Alistair Crowley.
Alistair Crowley. Yeah, because he's the head of a kind of devil cult. But in the film, you don't ever get a sense that, his congregation.
You don't. You only see one, Rand Hobart.
Yes,
where he's like tried to do some sort of hypnotic experiment on him.
Well, once again, that's another scene that kind of goes from 0 to 100. And obviously that's Brian Wilde, if you know The Last of the Summer Wine. But that is a haunting, horrible scene, because it really is. And I think that's probably the secret of it. That, if people are distressed when you're not seeing like the monsters, then that gives you a feeling of dread. You think, oh my goodness, what's coming?
Yeah. I mean, the crux of the movie is that you're passed a piece of parchment with runic symbols on it that has a curse on it, and if you've got the parchment, you're kind of screwed unless you pass it to somebody else in a kind of sneaky way, basically. So I know without them knowing, which is what Carswell did to Dr. Holden at the British Library. Which looks absolutely massive, that library. So I know all these stalls and books and things.
That's the thing about Julian Carswell. Is it Niall McGuiness?
I have to stop you here. I thought Niall McGuiness kind of steals the show in this movie, does he?
Yes, he's absolutely fantastic. I didn't realise he had. Well, obviously he played later on. He played Zeus in Jason and the Argonauts, but he played Martin Luther in 1953. And obviously he was a practicing GP, so when he wasn't acting, he was being a general practitioner. And sometimes we've known practitioners, have gone to doctors, and sometimes they have this soothing voice, and that that it's almost playing a kind of part. So it's not a stretch to say, well, you're a GP and you can be a actor as well. But he got quite some rave reviews. I think that film got a couple of technical Oscar nominations. Martin Luther he was in. But he's fantastic.
It just I've seen him in other stuff as well. I mean, he had small parts in like classic movies like Gorgo.
Yeah, and also.
But that was obviously the Irish contingent, because obviously there's was it Liam Redmond, who's also in this movie as O'Brien. He's another Irish actor.
Well, yeah, and I think he's got the face, and I don't know whether or not he's very good at it, because I think he's played. I don't know how many blind people he's played, but I know there's one film, The Street Has No Trees. He plays a blind person, but he's just got the face that, that idea he can make his, look up, and, he just seems to have that acting ability.
Okay, so we'll just kind of skim through the movie and see what we can remember.
Yeah, although I must admit that Niall McGuiness, I always used to get him and Eric Pullman confused, because they have that kind of same look. Obviously, he was in Carry On Spying, playing, as it says in the credits, the Fat Man, and then in the Pink Panther, he plays credited called the Fat Man as well. But he was the voice of Blofeld in From Russia with Love, and Thunderball, obviously uncredited, but he had that voice. Yeah. But anyway, yes, the film.
So it starts off with this opening monologue, kind of. Dun, 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 dun.
Yes, well, I'm basically saying that demons and witchcraft are real.
You got some shots of Stonehenge,
which are then reused again when Dana Andrews visits.
And so then there's credits, and you got this kind of bombastic music, and then cut to a scene where there's cars flying down the road at dangerous speeds in the dark country roads, and we have Professor Harrington looking a bit anxious, and he's on his way to see Julian Carswell. So do you remember that scene at the start?
Yes, yeah, because obviously, he'll tell he's not the first person to say to Julian Carswell, I believe you, take the curse off me, and he says, "Do you have the parchment?" I said, "No, it burnt up." And he's so matter of fact. It's like, it's done. You only get one chance with Carswell. It's like, don't do this. And you carry on and you say, "Well, I'm sorry, it's too late now."
Yeah, it was like, "Oh, I'll do whatever I can," which is absolutely nothing.
No.
Because Harrington goes home, and he parks in his garage, and then suddenly you get, when there's a kind of squeaky sound,
Yes,
kind of thing, it forebodes the...
I don't know whether or not it's
the demon.
Yeah, whether it's
like a squeaky thing, is
or bones rattling,
Yeah.
or there's something it sounds like milk bottle tops, but it's not. But it's like kind of bones, or maybe runes. Maybe that's what they thought. The idea of that sound was rattling.
So Harrington, instead of going into his house, he goes back to his car, reverses back into electricity pole.
Yes, yeah.
The wires come down and he gets electrocuted.
Yes, but then he sees but then there's a demon through, and this is the first time we see it, and it is disturbing, and it looks much better in black and white rather than the colour. Because at first, when I watched it first time, I couldn't get my head around what it was. It wasn't a man in a suit, and it wasn't in stop motion animation, and then not till years later that you see, I see what it is. It's like a moved, like a, not a puppet, but it's got some sort of
like a
mechanism.
marionette thing.
Yes, yeah. There was obviously some sort of mechanism inside it that's putting smoke in its hand or smoke, but it's really, really effective. And then the face for 1957, obviously it's molded, must be molded, not latex, but molded rubber or something like that they've made.
It's a bit of a contentious opening, because there's people in the camp where they didn't like the fact that they showed the demon. They want to keep it kind of more psychological.
Although,
but seemingly there was some sort of difference of opinion between Jacques Tourneur and Hal Chester, the producer. He wanted the demon in it, so he stuck it at the beginning as well. So when you see the demon twice in the movie,
you're right. You're
really, he does kind of half come in the scene in the middle of the movie where Holden's
through the forest,
breaking into Carswell's home.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, I can if you hadn't cut to the close up of the face until the very end, because you get a real close up early on, and if you just saw this demon coming towards you, and then just saw the claw, then there's no. Well, in actual fact, to be fair, they have it on the poster. So they must have thought, well, it was on the poster. What's the point of hiding the demon?
I mean, compared to some of the monsters at that time in the 50s, I mean, it looks pretty good to me. And when I was watching it as a kid, it certainly drew me in to watch the movie, because I just put it on thinking I was going to fall asleep.
Oh, no.
And I didn't. I watched the whole lot.
Well, you know what? I wonder if they hadn't made the eyeballs look like kind of human eyeballs, if they'd had it slightly different, because it just got like two white round balls with a black kind of iris in it, pupil, I should say. But once again, that's I'm sure there's somebody's done a cut where they've taken the demon out, and of course then you see not the model, but somebody in a suit later on when the demon's horribly pawing at Julian Carswell's body, which is that's horrible.
Yeah, spoilers ahead. So basically sets up that Professor Harrington, who's leading this expose into supernatural, trying to uncover Carswell's shenanigans with his devil cult of one person and his mum and his mother.
His devil cult, which once again, maybe they didn't have to hammer people over the head with it to say, yeah, I'm a leader of a cult, and they've provided all this big house for me, and it's like, well, where's
he's obviously making something, because he's got a big giant mansion, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing.
So that's Harrington over and done with, and next we cut to an aeroplane, and we see the prestigious Dr. Holden trying to sleep on a plane.
On a plane, which I don't know whether or not they needed that little model shot because that model shot of the plane really looks like, it just looks like a toy. You could have went from there straight into the interior of the plane without having the little model. But he's trying to sleep, and then there's Peggy, not Peggy.
Peggy Cummins. Yeah.
Peggy Cummins as Holden, not Holden's daughter. No, is it Holden's? No, nephew.
Niece. It's Harrington. Something
Harrington. Yeah, sorry. Holden is the Dana Andrews.
So Rebecca Harrington, is it?
Yes, something like that.
Anyway, niece Harrington, and so basically, she's seemingly a teacher, and she's just coming back from the States, and she's marking some papers for her kids. Obviously, that's pissing off Holden because he's trying to sleep. Now, I want to bring up, this is Holden's character. He's this super prestigious doctor, debunking super skeptic, supernatural stuff, and he's got a paper on his face as an eye shade, but he just happens to have his picture on the paper just showing upwards while he's lying there. I mean, that's saying something, is it?
That's it, exactly. That's it. Yeah, he's a player. That's it. Yes, because obviously he's coming to attend the conference and meet with
Harrington.
Harrington, and obviously they don't know that he's met a sticky end.
Joanna Harrington. Because remember in the seance, Joanna.
Yes,
So basically, he gets the airport.
Yes, and
he gets surrounded by two pressmen.
And one of the pressmen is the actor who ends up playing the Major in Fawlty Towers.
Really?
Yes, and
Major.
Yes, but people forget that. I wish you could remember the guy's name. That he was in a film called They Made Me a Fugitive. So he was actually a wee bit of a heartthrob in the kind of 30s and 40s before.
Yeah.
Most people only know him as being the Major. Because he spoke totally different, when he wasn't in the Major character.
Okay, I didn't know that, Ian. So I'll look out his filmography.
Oh yes, it's a good one. Yeah.
So then Holden gets the news, the shocking news that the person he came over the Atlantic to see, Professor Harrington, was killed tragically the night before, which is a bit of a shock.
Yes.
Cut to this lavish hotel room. Looks like a massive lavish hotel room, and Holden's having a shower while he's talking to his Harrington's aide and
his colleagues,
and Liam Redmond, who plays Professor or Dr. O'Brien or Mark O'Brien or something, who's a bit of he's not so much a skeptic. He kind of believes there's something going on, but he's an intellectual dude.
Yeah, and is his Indian or Pakistani colleague?
Yeah, okay. That's so basically there's a third party comes in. He's Kumar.
Kumar, yeah.
And he is a white man.
Yes, and that's why I don't know if that actor was actually Welsh, so that's probably why his accent is
Obviously, Peter Sellers was available that time.
Well, that's the. But then that O'Brien has my favourite in any films like this. He's got woodcuts or prints from woodcuts to show fire demons and from ancient manuscripts.
He obviously got his kids to do the pictures as well.
Well, that's the thing, and obviously, because he's talking about the.
Like you see, is the something demon of Baal, the blah 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 blah, the Persian blah blah kind of thing. I can't remember, just paraphrasing, but yeah, there's all these ancient demons. But basically, Dr. Holden's just had a shower. He's coming out in his robe, and he's doing his hair, and he's just a lot of nonsense. So.
Well, exactly. Yeah, he's more than that. Yeah. He doesn't believe any of it, and for a long time he doesn't believe any of it,
Yeah. So that's quite funny about because Holden's skepticism just goes way too far deep into this movie before he actually starts believing something.
And that's the thing about the timings to say how, because you don't want the audience to then say, "Oh, come on," it's like the time's running out and you're still not, a believer. It's like, come on, and then it has to be something for you to then, Yeah, I believe, or enough time in the film for you to genuinely, I believe now.
I'm not sure of the order of events, but he does go to the British Library to do some research. Oh, everybody loves a research scene.
He gets a phone call.
Oh, he gets the phone call first. Okay, so Caswell phones him up at the hotel.
But here's the thing about when you think about film baddies, it's usually the hero goes to the baddie. This guy Caswell, he is proactive. He's not wasting any time. It's like, and no, Caswell's on the phone and
Basically, Caswell, in a kind of nice, underhanded way, is basically just threatening Holden to say, look, Harrington's gone, you're next if you don't shut down the investigation. But obviously that intrigues Holden even more.
It intrigues, and as I say, he's Caswell's a bit like Scaramanga. He only needs one bullet. He only gives one warning, and then that's it. Sorry, you didn't, and that's even more insidious because it's like there's nothing you do. He's told you once, but he hasn't frothed at the mouth or like screamed. He's just like say, I think you should. He's not saying this is the final warning. I think he's just saying, yeah, I think you should just maybe drop that. And it's like,
I'm going to say something that might get some sick bags out, but Caswell likes to ruin people's lives.
Oh, that's terrible. Okay. I would say that's monstrous and horrible.
So basically that there's a phone call, and so I think the next scene was he goes to the British Library, big massive library, and he does some research, and he's asking for this particular book. The witch, something of the witches and demons, or blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and the clerk's like, oh, very peculiar. We did have one, but it's gone missing for some reason.
Yes,
I'll get it checked out.
I would say that and Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley as well. That's another one.
But then this character appears.
Yes,
and he says, "Oh, I just happened to overhear you're looking for a copy of the blah blah witches and demons book. I just happen to have a copy. It's actually Julian Caswell there in person." He has a pleasant chat with Dr. Holden, again, kind of.
And then he gives him his business card.
Yeah, the business card that has disappeared writing.
Almost like a glitter embossed writing on that then appears and then just disappears.
And then later on, obviously, like Holden, even though he's a skeptic, he still has a doctor or somebody try and check it out or something.
Exactly, yeah, to analyse it and say, look, there's nothing there. There's no ink in there. That hasn't been a trace of anything. There's nothing there. And I think it says, what does it say? It says, is it in memory or?
No, your time allowed is 3 days or something.
Yes, yeah.
But then it disappears. He's kind of wondering what that means, your time allowed. So basically Caswell just happens to knock over some of the books that Holden's researching.
Yes.
And he gets down to pick them up and he passes it to Holden.
Exactly. He must be a new parchment with the runes on them.
Yeah. So this is where he slipped the parchment into the books, and Holden accepts the books, unaware that he's accepting the cursed parchment. Okay, so that was so we got a come together between the two main characters of Caswell and Holden there.
And I think that's when does he invite them to come round to have a look at his book?
Yeah, Yeah, so he does take him up on the invite to go to, is it Ludwig Hall or something like that? Something like that.
And then I think after that he goes to, is it the funeral of?
Yeah, so he goes to Professor Harrington's funeral. He goes up to the coffin. I don't know if it was was it an open casket or something?
I don't know if it was. I think it was a closed one.
He just goes in. He goes in for a second, then he goes, and then he walks back out. So I know. It just happens coincidentally, the same woman that he was pestering on the plane over just happens to be the niece of Professor Harrington. What a coincidence!
Well, that's the thing. That's Peggy Cummins, who she was in the Hell Drivers, and she was in Gun Crazy. And I always used to confuse Peggy Cummins and Veronica Lake, thinking that they were the same kind of person. And then I didn't realise that Veronica Lake dropped out of Gun Crazy, and they ended up taking Peggy Cummins in. But she only passed away in 2017.
She had quite a long life.
Yeah,
she did all the tours and
and
fan stuff.
And I think she even introduced a digital digital remastering of Night of the Demon in 2013, and she was in attendance. I think she stopped making films in about early 60s, and I think concentrate on was it charity for what was the charity again? It was it cerebral palsy? I think it might have been cerebral palsy, something like that. But then I saw a clip of her in Jim Davison's Cinderella. You know, and that was his adult with Charlie Drake. I think that was one of these. You know, it was a kind of an adult pantomime with a bit more swearing and a bit more Benny Hill kind of stuff.
Probably a bit more saucier than Benny Hill.
Well, yes, yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing. But she died. Yeah, 2000.
She had a long life. So
and like Dana Andrews. If you watch that film, you think Dana Andrews with that voice, you think he's only got maybe another year left. But it was 1992 he passed away. But already with that voice, you think you need to give up on the fags or stuff like that. But no, he lived a lot longer.
Yeah, was he not like some head of some actors union or something? He did some stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think he was the greatest actor, but he did a lot of stuff in the background for other actors and things.
Well, of course, he was in one of the great kind of post-war films. Was it the Days of Our? It was the Days of Our Lives. That was when it was a film about the soldiers returning to America, and did Frederick March win Best Actor, and there was a young actor who hadn't acted before, but he was like a double amputee. But the guy had lost his arms through a car crash, and he used these kind of early, artificial arms,
prosthetics, and stuff.
Yeah, and he won Best Supporting Actor. But they didn't. As I say, one of those faces that you recognise him, but perhaps don't know the name. Dana Andrews. But no, he was good. He's got a fantastic voice.
Yeah, he does have a unique voice. But that was kind of the way to sell the movie to the US market. If it's like a British movie, they would bring over maybe like not an A-list, but like maybe a former A-list or former old movie legend in the past his prime.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the first two Quatermass films. With what was the name of the actor? Because I thought he looked a bit like Errol Flynn, but
the grumpy American guy that Nigel, what's his name?
Well, obviously Nigel Neal wrote.
Nigel Neal absolutely hated.
Yes, because obviously Quatermass is supposed to be British,
Yeah, he was a bit arrogant, was he not? So.
Yes. Anyway, yes. So they team up both. Dana Andrews' character and Peggy Cummins' character team up, and then say we're going to see Julian Carswell, and they go to his house when he's having I don't know if it's an open day or a fun day, and he's like Dr. Bobo.
Now,
is it Dr. Bobo?
If you grown up in the countryside and you knew that the guy in the big mansion was a devil whisperer, would you let your kids go and get ice cream and play at the mansion?
Well, it's homemade ice cream. Well, that's the thing is the back cloth has got all the pentacles, behind when he's pulling the puppies out of the hat, and he's got the pentagrams on the thingy. But that's once again another menacing scene, all done softly. He's not threatening.
Yeah, he kind of. Do you believe in witchcraft? What type of witchcraft? Let's see. What can we do here? He conjures up like a storm just to prove a point. But obviously, Dr. Holt and Dana Andrews just believes it's a bit of a coincidence that happens.
Well, that's it. And then that's when he kind of lays it on the line, and he's talking about the twilight world between the real and the unreal, or the good and the bad, and then one of the many jump scares we have with the wee kid in the mask. Because as I say, the film is full of jump scares, and you get done twice. Trains come, and you think, and then they come again, and then there's doors opening, and I think there's only one cat
Yeah. Now, speaking of cat, would you think that the Jacques Tourneur, is it Tourneur?
Is it?
Tourneur. Tourneur.
Tourneur. Oh, is it Tourneur? No, it's
Tourneur.
not Tourneur.
Tourneur.
Is it Tourneur?
Well, obviously him and Val Luton did Cat People and I Walk with a Zombie and that kind of stuff like that. But would the bus scene in Cat People, would that technically been the first jump scare in movie history?
Well,
because it was set up that way.
Yes, it was set up that way, and it was, obviously you must have got a reaction for it. I'm sure you'd have to go back and have a look at. But it's that idea of that's done deliberate. It's not just the bus appearing and the sound of the doors opening. Just like it's a wee bit difficult to have the train, because obviously, but that comes out of nowhere. Although that did it the same again in this movie with a train. Exactly, yeah.
But it's like it's that rule in movies where if it's out of shot, then it's not there until it's in shot.
It's in shot,
but in reality, that person would have seen that bus coming a mile off. So
it's all the misdirection. It's all leading your eye to one place. Say like there's a scene in the when he's in the hotel corridor looking for his room, and it's misdirection. He's looking to the kind of left or the right, and then he doesn't see it as the was it O'Brien. He opens the door. Oh, how are you doing?
He gets a bit of that. He gets a bit of that kind of that presence of the demon, the little kind of
and the kind of
hotel.
the watery images, the kind of shimmering images.
They did that when Caswell walks away. They did that kind of shimmering effect, like when he kind of walks off in the distance.
Because that's what Caswell says, that your mind's going to deteriorate over the next 3 days. You're going to be, you're going to lose everything. Once again, he's not pussyfooting around. It's a case of no, it's not if, it's when you're going to die. It's going to be 3 days, and this demon's going to come for you. And sorry, there's nothing you can do.
I'm not sure what the next scene is. I know that he.
Yeah, because there's a lot of scenes back into the back into the hotel room where he's getting a little bit more, or he's speaking about trying to analyse the parchment, and then they're talking about if they can get Hobart
do the some hypnotic experiment on him.
Yes,
regress his brain or something.
Regress his brain, because then Holden has to speak to Hobart's family to get the release form to.
Now, the scene when he goes to visit Hobart's family
and the farm.
This is one of the scenes that were cut out. In fact, I think they cut out the whole Rand Hobart thing from Curse of the Demon, which was the American cut of the movie. So they didn't get to see another British card actor. Was it Percy Herbert? He's got one of these faces that you've seen like a million times if you grew up watching British movies. He's in it everywhere, was he?
Yes, yeah.
But there's a good tense scene where he takes out his wallet and he pulls out the parchment.
Once again, I've never known it. You could technically call it a jump scare as well. The jump scare of the parchment flying out of that I'd class that as a jump scare as well, because it's flying and you think, oh my goodness, and later on.
It's trying to get into the fire and burn itself.
Well, see, that's the thing. But people talk about jeopardy and in filmmaking, but that scene, there's, you could have Tom Cruise climbing up, buildings and stuff like that. But that scene where the parchment is up against the fire guard, and you're almost holding your breath to think, oh my goodness, it's, but he doesn't seem to be, Holden doesn't seem to be bothered because, just the wind. And it's like, no, get that parchment from the fire guard, because if that goes up in flames, sorry, that's it.
That's when he was shacked up with Joanna Harrington at her kind of
our dead,
quaint little...
Our dead uncle's house.
Yeah, and it was windy and rainy, and it had that perfect kind of horror movie atmosphere going.
Well, that's the thing, you don't analyse it too much. It's like they're having a meal with candles and they've got the window, they've got the doors wide open and like the wind's blowing and stuff like that. He
said that he didn't get the parchment past him. This must have been before the farm scene, because he said he didn't get Joanna says, you sure that Caswell didn't pass anything to you? And he kind of thinks back, well, you did pick up my books for me.
Yes.
And then he says, oh, but it's in the hotel room. No, it's not. It's in my briefcase. And then he goes to his briefcase and he pulls out the book, and there enough, the parchment's there.
The parchment's there, and then it flies
out.
And as I say, that is a really, really tense scene. You know, in a little black and white film, it's a tense scene of looking at it's a piece of paper trying to slowly work its way off a fire guard into the fire.
Now, if that fire guard wasn't there, I mean, he would have been a dead man.
But that's what they talk about filmmaking. It's all about stakes, you know, not
just
little
things that can change the course of a life.
You know, this little piece of paper has a great significance, and you're wanting it to, you know, not burn up, and you're wanting it to, you know, go back to Julian Carswell.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously this past the parchment. Past the parcel, past the parchment.
Past the parchment.
The flaw is if it gets passed back to you, you're kind of screwed as well. So it only works. It only works one way, kind of thing.
But he doesn't find that out. We know that, but he doesn't know that until he speaks to kind of Hobart. But in the meantime, Carswell's mum is phoning and you know, trying to you know, help Holden, you know.
Carswell's mum, she isn't Margaret Rutherford, but she's got that kind of Margaret Rutherford kind of. I always get her mixed up with Margaret Rutherford. She's got a lot of same roles and stuff.
Yeah, and also I was thinking there's a woman. Have you seen Fahrenheit 451?
Yeah,
the film. There's a woman who, a small woman with a kind of, you know, similar hairstyle, and I was thinking it was her, but she was actually slightly younger, and she has a tiny part in Quatermass in the Pit. She's like, once again, she looked a little bit like Margaret Rutherford, you know.
Now, speaking of Carswell's mother, there's a bit of a subplot where she tries to interfere, set up Joanna Harrington and Dr. Holden with some sort of seance or some psychic.
Yeah. But before that, there's that scene that's probably the first time you see Carswell kind of raise his voice when he's saying to his mother, I need to do these things in order so we can have my followers can, you know, provide us with money for this house. And he's really quite animated. That's the first time you actually see him animated to say, look, you know, I can't stop. It's, you know.
Yeah, just in terms of personality, Carswell's quite a jovial, nice guy, and he's the evil man, but he comes across as welcoming, warm, accommodating,
and that's what's so frustrating and enticing.
It's Holden. He's a complete prick in the movie, isn't he?
He's
an arrogant prick.
Yeah, you actually want him, but he's so enticing. He's apologising, so yes, and you know later on when he's saying, "Oh yeah, have you got any matches? Oh yeah, I'll give you. Oh yeah, or you know, it's like if you're supposed to be the bar, you know, you almost want to be twirling your kind of moustache, but no, there's something fascinating and. Yeah, you just can't take your eyes off Niall McGuinness's performance.
He just likes to stay home and play games with his mother. So.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, you know, to think, well, he's doing all these things, but what is the end apart from having a large house? You know, it's like that. I suppose you don't need to have all the backstory filled in, but you know, he's a devil worshipper, a devil cult, and he's doing this to get money, and he's doing this to intimidate his kind of followers. But you know, it's not like he's sitting there, on a throne or stuff like that. He's just, unless he just spends time reading, and that's all he wants to do.
You think all those kids that turned up at his Bobo the Clown party were the kids of his cult followers, maybe?
Well, unless it's one of these ones where. It's like a charity thing. I do this because I don't think it's from a children's home or anything like that. I think it's just
he made it like you kind of reminisce that he used to play a clown earlier in his life.
Oh yes, he was a stage.
That was his character, Bobo the Clown.
Yeah, Bobo the Clown.
But clowns are kind of scary as well. I mean,
well, I think it's the thing about the clowns was. I think it's, when a clown smiles, I think it's because how quickly that kind of, the painted smile can drop. And all of a sudden you can have something that seems quite cheery, but if the face drops, that's why kids can, I suppose, get a bit frightened. But I think it's been kind of I don't mean blown out of proportion. I think some of it is more suggestive that clowns are scary. It's like, well, clowns were scary, yes, but not to the extent that people talk about it now as a real phobia. Whether or not more people talk about it and more people have a phobia of clowns because more people are talking about it, or whether or not that was always the case.
I've got like phobia of scary looking dolls.
Yeah,
I think they'll probably get some sort of scary looking dolls.
Yeah, that's true. Have you seen that film with Robert Shaw in it? And it's got no, it's not Mia Farrow. It's who was the actress who was married to Clint Eastwood? She's in that film. Sandra
Locke.
Sandra Locke. That is one of the scariest. Early on, that's one of the scariest films I've seen, because she's got all these dolls in this house, and she talks about, I think she had lost her brother or something, and the camera pans across the room, and you see doll after doll after doll, and then you see a kind of large, almost not quite a life-size doll, with some sort of gauze over its face, and it's quite obviously an actor, but it's not mentioned at all, and you can almost see it move, and that sends the hairs on the back of your neck. Oh, what was that film called? Yeah, it was Robert Shaw and Sandra Locke. And it's got a twist ending, but that's a good film as well. But that's got dolls, because she collects dolls. I think that's a shorthand. Now, if somebody collects dolls, it's either a shorthand for being creepy or not. Yeah. Although the last thing before the clowns, that seems to now be a subgenre of kind of horror. It's like the psycho clowns. You see them with which never used to be the case. Maybe a wee bit like what's the film, The Terrifier.
Oh, Art the Clown, or
yes, yeah, or that seems to have been a subgenre.
Could it be linked to maybe John Wayne Gacy playing a clown? As well?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised that there's something along that. And then you've got Tim Curry with It, and I think, but also sometimes people say, clowns are scary, and it's
what about
maybe they're not scary. But
Sid Haig's clown in, was it that horror? Was it American Horror? That thing it used to. There's like a different season. It's called
American History. No, not American History. Is it?
What was it called? I've only watched the first 3 seasons of it, but it's like American something, blah blah, and then in the next season is American something.
Yes,
blah, blah.
It's set in different places. There's asylum.
I can't remember, but usually they just kind of recycle the same actors in each season as different characters. They kind of, I think it's was it the American actress that was in Rob Roy with Liam Neeson? What's the name? The blonde one.
Oh yes. She won the 2 Oscars. Jessica Lange.
Jessica Lange. Yeah. She has a recurring role in these. Thing, but like Sid Haig just looks like a nightmare anyway. But he doesn't have to be dressed up as a clown.
But see, that's the thing. I think that the Carswell clown, that's okay when you see it's human. I think when you put the white on it, or the face is so disguised that it's then becomes maybe that's probably where people have the fear, because then you can't read the face, or it's a clown mask. Maybe that's probably scary, a clown mask.
So I think we're about that seance scene.
Yes, yeah.
So this is quite. I mean, some people might say it's quite comical.
Well, it starts comical because you think it's where it's going to go. You think it's going to. You think it's going to go. Hello, are you there? And you think it's. But then they dub the voices.
Yeah.
And they've got, it's Mr. McGregor, or he's always says, it's like, and it's actually quite good that it's a bad Scots accent.
Canny weather we have here, and all this kind of shit.
Yeah, and you don't know if the voice has been slowed down or manipulated, or the person who is doing it isn't a very good Scotsman, and it's like, that's starting to get creepy. And then they do the child, and that tips you over, and you think, yeah, we're in...
Hi, I'm Frederica.
It is scary.
So it's like all these spirits trying to get to a soundbite.
To Mr. Meek.
Yeah, Mr. Meek, the vessel.
But then Dana Andrews, he said, nah, that's a lot of rubbish. And he just gets up and thinks, nah, I had enough of this. And people say, look, you can't just wake a medium. It's like, nah, I've had enough of this rubbish.
I think, like, in terms of, like, really impactful seance scenes, probably one of the best, I think, in my opinion, was the seance scene in The Changeling.
Yes, The Changeling, or people talk about, was it Don't Look Now as well?
Yeah.
You know, I think there's that thing where it has to be.
She looked, the woman, the blind woman, she looks kind of freaky.
Because she obviously contacts and stuff like that. But that's these things have to be handled, correctly. That it doesn't become either too comical or it needs the right just to send a chill. Oh, this is something. And sometimes you can do that by a different voice or stuff like that.
Yeah, and then the last voice is Professor Harrington, and that's the soundbite that Kate Bush uses at the beginning of the Hounds of Love.
Yes, because I think Hobart says
it's in
that
the woods.
as well.
It's coming.
It's in the woods, or it's in the trees, or
it's in the trees. It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you actually never heard him say it at the start, but he says it during the séance. But you think because that's Maurice Denham's voice.
Yes.
But you would think Holden would recognise the voice as well, because similarly they're so old muckers going back decades and stuff.
Well, that's the case. But also, was it before that's the scene where Holden's diary pages have been torn out?
Yeah, I'm not sure in the order of things where that was, but so basically the precursor was Harrington's diary had his pages ripped out, and the last day was the day he died. And then he says that he's going to die on, was it the 28th or something?
28th, yeah.
And basically somebody had taken hold of Holden's diary and basically just ripped out of the pages after the 28th. But he kind of says, well, that's kind of psychological, because you're going to think you're going to die and you might make yourself scared and jump in front of a truck and kill yourself anyway. So,
but that's the thing. But also the way it's almost like haphazardly. It's like that doesn't look supernatural. It just looks as if somebody's torn the page. It's not like they've been singed. It's not like anything.
It's like the kind of flippant way that Brian goes, "Oh, Holden, are you going anywhere after the 28th?" He says, "No." Oh, well, you got ripped out all your pages, as if that's something that people do. Yeah. Says, I'm not doing anything for the rest of my life. I'm just going to rip the pages out of my diary.
But then it's all these little things that mount up. It's all these little, things that you've forgotten about, and then it brings it back into, to get the story moving.
So basically, they all leave the séance. So it was a bit of a damp squib for Holden, but it kind of piqued Peggy Cummins as Joanna Harrington, because she's basically set to go over to Carswell's mansion that very night. Now, Carswell suddenly appears outside the door and basically just grabs his mother and says, get in the car.
Get in the car, because they want to see if he's got a book to translate what the runes on the parchment say.
So Holden accompanies. Basically, Joanna says she's going to go herself, but this obviously the male chauvinistic way of the 50s, you can't have that happening because women can't do anything themselves, so have to have the man there. I think the Joanna Harrington character is quite a strong character for that time. She's quite. She pushes back on Holden and kind of sets him in his way on a few occasions.
On a few occasions, but then he's more interested and said, have dinner with me.
Yeah. Okay. He is a bit of a player. So.
Yeah, he's a bit of a player.
Okay, and so this is probably one of my best scenes in the movie, is where Holden they drive up to his the gates of the manor. It's Ludlow Manor or something. I can't remember. It's the middle of the night. It's probably the early hours of the morning, and Holden says, "You wait here. I'm going to go." So he's kind of rummaging about he climbs over the wall, rummages about through the woods on his way there. And was the demon before or after?
After, because he goes there and he sees the ivy and he sees a window open, so he climbs up, gets in the window, and then he's working his way downstairs, and then you see a door open, and then you kind of, not quite a jump scare, but you see the hand on the banister a couple of times.
Dun, dun, dun. It's like a hand. Dun, dun, dun. It's like you could have a hand one scene and then a foot the next scene.
Yeah.
And some other limb the next scene. So
he's working his way down into the library.
That's definitely Jacques Tourneur and Val Lewton. They did this all the time.
Well, that's the thing, and also it's just a disembodied kind of hand, almost like a claw. You don't see that. You just see the hand like there, and the hand But which, once again, it's this menace, this, it's
Yeah.
something's coming to get you. So
This kind of looks like the precursor of a Mel Brooks gag or something.
Well, that's the thing. Then he works his way downstairs into the kind of library area. He sees this, his kind of, it looks like an old school jotter, where once again the pages have been ripped out of those the book. But then he sees the cat, and then the cat, Carswell's cat, and then the cat kind of transmogrifies into like a leopard or a jaguar or something like that.
Yeah, it was like some big black cat.
And then, as I say, it attacks him, and then suits Kurt, and then that's when Carswell comes in as if. He picks up a poker.
He's not that bothered. It's like it's like people break into his house all the time. So.
And once again, he's so but also he's so, as I say, matter of fact, and it's like, couldn't you find what you were looking for? He was like so open, and then that's when he kind of says, at this time of night, this is where cats wander and the witches dance and all this sort of stuff.
So that's a good scene. Well, just reinforces that Carswell's actually quite a. He's a complicated character because he's the bad guy. He's doing bad things, but he does it in a nice way, does he?
Well, that's it, because he says that this is his kind of a small demon to protect his the house or the library or whatever it is.
Yeah, so he's got like a shape-shifting pussy.
Yes.
What was that? It's got like a name like Grimaldon or something, or some
like
medieval name.
Yeah, because he said that the cats were often called that in the medieval times. And as I say, Holden, Carswell says, look, go down the path. He says, no, I'm going to go the way I came, through the woods. And he says, don't go into the forest, don't go into the woods.
Yeah, that's one. He's like, Holden, being the arrogant prick that he is, that's one superstition I stick to. I go back the same way I came.
But yeah, and he's going through the forest.
And then Carswell's like, oh, well, I told him.
And then, but then he doesn't even say that, because Carswell could have said, I've got a curse around the forest to protect it as well. He doesn't say any of that. And then there's a wee jump scare with the tree. And then all of a sudden he's
the squeaky sound.
The squeaky sound, and then he starts to see, a bit like Forbidden Planet, he starts to see these footprints that are kind of smoking across the path. And then he has that kind of rattling bone kind of sound. And then you see a kind of almost look like white ink smoke appear and kind of follow him, but you don't quite see the demon's face. And he's getting chased through the woods. And does he get back to the hotel? And he says, that's he said, he must have had some sort of machine or something. He still doesn't believe, And
even when you got the invitation card or welcome card analysed and there was no trace of any substance on the card, you still kind of passed that off as well.
Yes, yeah, because his eyes, he doesn't trust his eyes. So then that's where they kind of regroup, and then that's when they're going to go. Well, they regroup, and Holden seems to be right. Yeah, we'll just do the conference as normally. So we'll get Hobart, the person who he's been in some sort of catatonic state since he's been accused of murder, but
I think what happened with Rand Hobart was he got past the parchment, but he worked out that if he could pass it on to somebody else,
yes,
the curse is lifted off him, and it's basically moved over to that other person. So, and that's kind of like what's the foreshadowing what's going to happen.
So that's what when he goes to the Hobart farm, and he's saying, it was his brother he killed, and it was like, but because you're never quite sure why his brother handed it to him.
Yeah. So obviously some brother. So basically, I'm not having it. You can have it. So.
But then so they get Hobart, and then Dr. O'Brien asks him some questions, and then
what was the kind of stuck some drugs in him and stuff.
Oh well, there was something. Was it sodium? No, was it sodium pentothal? And then it was amphetamine. Was the second one?
It was like some sort of cocktail. So that's kind of like a truth drug sort of thing. You see that in spy movies and stuff.
The sodium pentothal, and then gives him the amphetamine to perk him up, make him. And as I say, he snaps. As I say, he tears about the kind of hall. He's screaming.
When Holden pulls out, he's okay up until when Holden pulls out the parchment. And then he thinks it's getting passed back to him.
Passed to him. And once again, it's like probably all the best kind of demonic films is when there's no, pussyfooting around. He just jumps straight out the window, tis death, which is, that's 1957. And you see that, and that's quite shocking.
Yeah. I wonder, because that's one of the scenes that was cut from the Curse American version, because like they say, they cut out the whole
the whole
sub story in that.
Because if you cut all that out, it then becomes quite insular, because it's just, at least
the American cut was only like 82 minutes or something.
Because then if you do that Hobart story, that opens it up. And because if you cut it down, it's like, you haven't got a set. Well, let's say he hasn't got. We don't see many followers, but at least that kind of opens it up to, he's got his influence is greater than just him and his mum in his house and a couple of.
So I'm not remember sure what was said, but is that when Holden kind of clicks that if he was to pass the parchment back to the person who gave it to you, that reverses the curse.
Yes, and in the meantime, Joanna. Yeah, she's in her car, and then you just see this shadowy figure at the car, and then it cuts back to Holden, and then it's the Indian doctor,
Kumar.
Dr. Kumar. He says, "Oh, you still believe or not?" And he's trying to find out where Carswell is, and he says, "Oh no, Mrs. Carswell phoned again. Once again, it's like that." Deus Machina, she just phones just in the nick of time so he can go to the station, because Julian Carswell is going on some journey. Don't know why. He just decided to go in the train station. So Dana Andrews' character, Holden, he makes a dash to get into the station. But in the meantime, before that, he speaks to the police to say, look, he's put, Holden's put Carswell's put a curse on me, and it's like, or the curse killed Joanna's uncle.
Mm-hmm. So obviously Carswell's doing a runner trying to split, so basically the demon could take care of Holden.
Yes,
but obviously Holden.
And Holden gets onto the train and the police are there, and but then he finds the compartment, and it's not entirely clear why Carswell has the Peggy Cummins character under his spell. With him, whether it's company, whether it's insurance.
I think it's probably like some orgy thing or something.
But then that scene when Dana Andrews,
it's a good scene. It's a good back and forth there, isn't it?
It's a good back and forth because it's a power play, and you see Carswell squirm.
Yeah.
And every time Holden tries to offer him something, he thinks either the parchment's in a cigarette paper or it's in a book, and he's like, no, that's not mine. That's not. No, you can't. He doesn't want to touch anything, and he says it's too late, and then all of a sudden he says no. He forcibly restrains him, and the Dana Andrews character says, "No, you're going to stay here until this whatever this demon's going to come." And he says, "No, I'm not. No, I'm getting off this train."
And Joanna's like in a trance or something.
In a trance, which then he brings her out, and he's once again, he's the baddie, but he's been kind and considerate. And when Dana Andrews says, "Have you got matches?" "Oh yeah, of course." And it's like, why would you? If you're the big baddie, why would you even say no? I've got matches. And
gets him in the end because he obviously gets distracted by, was it the two coppers or something?
The two coppers, because he says, "Here's your book." I was, "Oh no, that's not mine." And I say, "Well, how about your
here's your jacket
bag?" And then he takes the coat, and then he says, "Pass it on to me." And then that's where the parchment then flies along the train carriage. And there was one scene when it's on the railways where you can see it's on a bit of a wire, but only one. When
you watch it on Blu-ray on a big screen, you can see the wire even before that.
Yeah, you can see that. So Carswell's out the train and he's running across, and then that's the timing of that first train jump scare must have been unbelievable, because you've got Niall McGuiness running, chasing the parchment, just as another train behind comes straight across. That timing must have been perfect, and he's chasing it parchment down the railway track. And then you start to see as time's ticking till 10 o'clock, and then you start to hear the noise, the kind of bones or the rattling, and then he sees a bit of smoke, and then he can't quite make out, and then you see the demon starts to appear, and then I think the parchment lands on the rail, but then it just I mean, whether that's to symbolise that the rail wouldn't be electrified, but it just bursts into, maybe at 10 o'clock, the parchment normally just bursts into flames.
So basically the demon transmorph into his true self and basically picks up Caswell.
Which
and
is
then
a horrible, nasty
and basically
scene.
just plays with him like a little toy or action man or something.
Yes,
he just starts ripping him apart.
Yes, but the model, the person in the suit, it isn't quite the same as the rubber kind of maquette. But it's still a nasty, because once again you're looking at the train, you're not looking up, and then you start to see the demon, and the demon's just like pawing at him and throwing him, and then eventually throws him down. And for 1957, Carswell's body's on the train track, and the authorities assume he's been hit by a train, but his body's smoking. You see it, his body is absolutely, it's on the track, smoking away and smoking away and smoking away.
Maybe that's what the demon does. It's like you don't
He's a fire demon.
Yeah, you don't see the demon, but he can mask killing by other natural events, sort of. I know. So people in the real world would just think, oh well, he just got run over by a train, or Professor Harton just got electrocuted when he backed into an electric pole or electric line or something.
Well, I suppose it's a bit like those the later kind of Freddy's, in Nightmare on Elm Streets, where the first ones there was no disguising. Oh no, this person's thingy. But in the later ones, it's been the person's died in the sleep, or there's I suppose a bit like the Final Destination. But that's and then Holden and Joanna. They make to as if they're going to go see the body to see what it is, and then they say, no, some things are best left, unknown. And they're walking along the platform, and then the second train jump scare, he gets you again.
That's the end.
He gets the end, and then they just, once again, filming that, they must have disappeared because they're walking along the platform, train comes along, and they're no longer there on the platform. So they must have said, right. So that idea, that supernatural element of it,
And that's Night of the Demon from 1957.
That's Night of the Demon, and I think in the 60s they made a TV version of Casting the Runes, which I think they've lost, a lot of the episodes. But they made one in 1978, 79, ITV version with Jan Francis, and she was playing the kind of the Holden kind of character. But in that episode, in that series, she is working on a supernatural debunking TV series. And you've got Ian Cuthbertson is the Carswell character.
It's good casting, yeah.
I've only seen little clips, but the demon, if you ever see footage of it, it's like some sort of little black statue. It's not the huge demon that you think of. It's like, obviously they've gone back more to the source material, but this, you see it it's a little weird, it almost looks like a kind of black marble version of the demon in The Exorcist that they dig up, but it seems to walk across the snowy landscape, and it is quite unsettling. I think in the book, in the short story Casting the Runes, it's all about the passing the kind of parchment, and I think somebody then gets onto a boat at the end, and one of the stewards say, I saw the person get on, but he wasn't alone. That idea of there's something always, some sort of spirit behind you, and, catching you.
There's always some figure or something lurking about in the background when it comes to Emma James. That's all I know. You're always getting followed, or there's somebody keeping about.
And sometimes the most chilling is a little thing like that. He said, no, I'm positive he wasn't alone. Thinking, well, we know as the readers he's alone. So what was that thing? And it's the little things that add to the the creepiness, which is difficult when it comes to filming, because sometimes you have to be very literal, because or if you look at films like The Haunting or The Innocents, where that idea where you've got the kind of wallpaper slightly changing, or there's the one in The Innocents where there's a black figure, a person dressed in black seems to be floating in the reeds, in the middle of a lake, and it's like, wait a minute, did I see that? Or is that, it's one of those ones where you're watching it the first time, it's okay, but then the longer you think, then you get the chill to think, I've noticed something that's there.
Yeah, it's like when you're watching, like when I was younger, when I was watching The Haunting the first time. When you're younger, obviously your imagination kind of runs riot.
Yes.
And you're watching the movie, it's black and white, and Julie Harris
and Claire Bloom and Michael.
She's lying in bed and she's looking at the wall. It's kind of
the face,
different.
Yes.
You think you could see her face.
Yes.
But are you seeing a face, or is it just the way the shadows is? It's pretty remarkable. Some of the stuff done there.
And it's the one where
you don't really see anything, but it's just enough.
An idea of it was the scene, probably the kind of famous scene when Julie Harris says, "Oh, give me your hand." Holding, she's holding her hand and says, "Oh, you're squeezing so tight." And then the light goes on, and the bed is the other side. It's like, well, whose hand was I holding? It's all these little things.
It's Ash from Evil Dead 2. I think that's probably like thinking about back to that. So
that's that. And obviously the haunter was that.
Like was it the redneck couple? Was it, yes. You got Bobby Joe? It's like was it just about you holding my hand? Stop holding my hand too tight, honey. I ain't holding your hand. It says, It was like Ash's hand. They chainsawed off like 20 minutes before.
Well, that's yeah. And like I said before, I think the black and white lends itself to those stories. And
I like the black and white,
particularly when was it Robert Wise direct The Haunting? It's in that kind of widescreen, and
he wanted to film it in black and white.
Yeah, because I think sometimes you think, well, black and white's kind of safe, and colours horrible. I think the other black and white horror people mention, not horror, ghost story, is it The Uninvited with Ray Milland?
Yeah, that's another favourite of mine. I've got that on Criterion, but it's who was there's a young girl in that who had a pretty tragic life, and she died quite young. She was like the main girl in that. She was like the girl from the town, not the one with Ray Milland when they go to the house. But I can't remember her name. But she basically she was very young. She got into addiction at a very early age, and kind of sabotaged her career. And then just a little bit later, she was involved in a drink driving where the people she killed somebody in the other car.
Oh dear.
And she couldn't live with the guilt, and she committed suicide.
Oh my goodness!
Very tragic. And you watched the Uninvited. She's beautiful. I mean, she's absolutely stunningly beautiful, and it's just tragic to see. She had the world at her feet.
Well, see,
she was going to be a big star.
Well, see, that's the thing that if you watch enough films and you see certain faces, and you think, well, how come I've not seen them in other films? In the 60s or the 70s or whatever, and then you realise, some people have, through whether it's addiction or through illness that have, they've passed away, or people have just couldn't get the parts and they've just,
kind of like Judy Garland. I mean, she got addicted at a young age as well.
Yeah, well, that's. But yeah, I suppose hindsight's a great thing. Like if people are telling you, you need to do this in order to get ahead. It's like
I think. I'm not sure if it was Judy Garland or the other girl from the Uninvited, but she suffered from stress and anxiety.
Oh, right.
And she needed to drink to get over that, and she couldn't function without doing that, and then obviously it became a problem.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That once you have to have some way to manage that anxiety, but it's a slippery slope, or to like a short fix. And then that short fix becomes longer and longer and longer, and then that affects the work, which then people don't want to work with you, and it's a sad thing, but also it happens all the time. But probably back then it was even worse in the the 40s to the 50s.
I've got another black and white one from similar period. There was a movie called City of the Dead with Christopher Lee.
Right, is that an Italian one? Is it?
No, well I've got it on disc, but it's a British movie, and I think it is Milton Subotsky.
Right, yeah, from the Amicus.
Amicus, but this is before Amicus was Amicus, so you could say this was unofficial, the first Amicus movie before it was Amicus, sort of, I know. But it's from 1960. It has Christopher Lee in it, but he's only got a small part. But it was shot in Britain, but it's set in America. In New England, or kind of Salem, New England,
yes,
kind of thing. And basically what it is Christopher Lee's this teacher, and this blonde girl, I think half the cast, I think pretty much all the cast were all Brits putting on really bad American accents. And the blonde girl is called Nan Barlow. So it keeps remember something like Coronation Street. And she's doing this thesis on witchcraft or something, and then Christopher Lee's like, oh well, you should go back to the town where I was born, something Selwyn, the witch that was burned at the stake.
All right.
She said, you should go there. She goes off there by herself and leaves her boyfriend and her brother. And she books into this hotel, which is looks like something of a Hammer horror movie, basically. I mean, it's got all the trappings and style and stuff, but it's black and white as well.
Black and white.
And it's brilliantly shot as well. It's absolutely brilliantly shot, and it's got so much smoke in it. It's brilliant. But you can watch it on YouTube right now. It's worth watching. There's so many versions of it. It's called City of the Dead.
That rings a bell.
Yeah,
because I think one of the other, once again, I think it's down to cinematography, because if you've got crisp, cinematography, the one that I keep returning to is the one with Barbara Steele. What's the one where she's the witch at the start and the hammer, that mask with nails? The
mask with the inward spikes.
Yes, the inward spikes, yeah. Because you're sitting and you're watching that and you think, I'm watching that because of the cinematography and the story, and I like that kind of, 400 years ago. We'll go back and then you flash forward to this time and all this sort of, a bit like what Roger Corman had done.
Yeah. Is that one of these early Bava movies or something?
Yes, yeah. Well, which is strange because Jacques
Tourneur.
His last two films were, what were they? They were, it was the Comedy of Terrors, which was one of the, was that the one that's got Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre and one of these kind of, was it Roger Corman? And I think his last film was City Under the Sea, which was then renamed, was it The Warlords of Atlantis? And that's the one.
Really? That's Doug McClure?
No, not that one. It's the one where I think they were trying to cash in on, I'd say, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
And it's got Vincent Price, and it's set in Cornwall. And it's got Vincent Price, and it's got David Tomlinson? And there's somehow...
I think I know. It's like there's like some underwater carving or something at the end or something.
Yeah, there's an underwater carving, and they somehow... And it's got an American actor who's got... it was David Tomlinson's got a chicken, which is... I don't know if... Because in Journey to the Centre of the Earth, one of the characters had the chicken. So it's like that kind of
I can't play this role without a chicken.
Yeah. Well, so that they end up down there, and that's the one
I've seen it, but I can't remember much.
That's where Vincent Price, you can leave it and live, for hundreds of years, but you can't leave because you'll get, ancient. So I think there's a woman there, and I think the woman resembles his ex-true love. And I think they get their power from like an underwater kind of volcano thing, which they're trying to, and it blows up. And I think that was his last. That was his last film. But a lot of these directors ended up working in television, stuff like that. So if you're looking at your filmography, but then you're looking at maybe directed, an episode of The Twilight Zone or whatever. I don't think he did, but that kind of anthology television. Yeah,
I watched a movie the other night. Now I thought it was going to be one of these anthology things. But it was called, it's not Crucible of Terror, but it's Crucible of Horror.
Yes, yeah. Well,
with Michael Gough.
Michael Gough, yeah. And I think, is that the one it also has another name called, is it The Body? It's something like that.
The Corpse.
The Corpse, that's it.
That is, I mean, I liked it. It was, it's strange, and it's just very, very weird and incestual and fucked up.
Well, funnily enough, I think that is just coming out. That's been re-released.
I think so, yeah.
That's coming out. And I think it's one of these ones where there's a lot of DVDs that are coming up and it says presented by Hammer. So the Hammer haven't produced them, but I don't know whether or not it's the Hammer people are helping with the cleaning up or the digitizing or whatever, because they're not Hammer films. But like
these Hammer boxes or limited editions, they're expensive as hell, aren't they?
They're quite expensive. Yeah, that's the thing.
I mean, they haven't really got into the main catalogue of titles yet. They're just nitpicking here and there.
Yeah, I've got about 20 years ago, roughly about 20 years ago, they brought out a big, they re-released a lot of the
DVD
DVDs.
box set.
And then they brought that big box set, which
it was like kind
20,
of black with red, and it's got a cross on it.
It's got a cross on it, and I've got that one. And that's the one where some of the later ones, like Straight On Till Morning, with Rita Tushingham. That's a good one, although basically like a Peter Pan story, but I think they should have... I
think it had like She and... Is it one of these? It was like the kind of like the...
The Viking... Was it the Viking Queens and the Land of the White Rhino? Or is it... There
was a couple kind of... the kind of Stone Age kind of...
Stone Age ones. And I don't know if it had was it the Lost Continent, but that's a strange. Have you ever seen the Lost Continent?
I'm
That's a
trying
strange
to. I've seen it years ago, but I'm trying to get a decent copy of it. So I know it's kind of a.
Yeah, because you look at that and you think that just looks like Return of the Jedi, because they've got this. He opens the trap door and there's this seaweed weed with teeth on the bottom of the shit, and it's like, yeah. But yeah, that's the thing about the Hammer horror, because obviously it's strange. The thing about the Hammer films is they made loads of Frankenstein, load of vampire Dracula films. But here's the thing: they made 4 mummy films, but only 1 werewolf. And that goes to show it's only...
That wasn't to be the Oliver Reed one, would
it?
Yes,
that was the only one they made. And it's like...
And there wasn't much werewolf in it.
There wasn't much werewolf. Although, technically, you could say the film, The Reptile, is a kind of were film. Where, the actress who was in Blake 7, she's cursed to be like transform into a reptile. And has to. I think she bites.
Is that the one she stays upstairs or something?
Yeah, she stays upstairs, and the ends. Spoilers is that she's. I think she's killed by a cold draft, which says, "Oh, it's cold," and she just keels over. I think she bites John Laurie, and he kind of turns. His skin turns black, and he foams at the mouth because Because
I was trying to think of. I've watched a few Hammer movies lately. I got a couple. I think I was watching Lust for a Vampire. Seen that one?
Yeah, those 3.
This is like going into. This is when they lost half the money from American markets, and they're trying to do it alone. And they were like scars of Dracula, and they were just. The budgets were really cut down, and there were even the map paintings just looked like. Oh
no, those later ones, particularly the scar, just looks like it's just looks like it's just done in a studio. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're terrible, and then they tried the co-production. Was it the Golden? Was it Dracula and the Golden Vampires? The Legend of the 7 Golden Vampires or something. And then I read, because there's a great book, and it lists all and it goes into detail about all the abandoned projects. Because what they used to do is just announce there's going to be a film called Nessie, or there's going to be a film called was it Zeppelin versus Pterodactyls or something? And there was going to be a sequel to the Legend of 7 Golden Vampires, but it was going to be set in India. Mm-hmm. Which would have been with Peter Cushing again, and it would have been interesting.
Didn't that go on location?
Well, no. Well, I mean, they joined up with was it the Shaw Brothers to do the?
Oh yeah, well,
And I think they were going to do a similar thing, but in India, which would have been interesting. And the one people always talk about is was it Captain Kronos?
Yeah, I like Carla Monroe.
Yes, and that's Brian Clemens. He wrote that, and that's what people are saying that
Avengers Clemens.
Yes, but what people think is he didn't create the Avengers, but Brian Clemens under his kind of scripts were what people assume is what the Avengers is. I mean, he wrote a script called it was The Tarnished Heroes, and that came out in 1961, and basically it's a Dirty Dozen. Dirty Dozen came out in 1967, and I think the book, based on the book of the Dirty Dozen, comes out in, I don't know, is it 63, 64? But Brian Clemens writes a script, and it's a film. Is it about 61? And that's more or less it is. There's a guy who they need to blow up a bridge, and the major says, "Look, I can't give you any."
Dynamite?
Well, I can't give you any soldiers. But he's just started the movie transporting these 6 deserters and strict unruly, and he says, "Okay." So he then recruits all these prisoners to say, "Right, we're going to blow up a bridge," and it's more or less just the Dirty Dozen. And Brian Clemens was not straight on to morning. It was And Soon the Darkness. That was one with
it's got
Pamela Franklin and
Frank Spencer's wife.
Michelle Detrice.
Detrice, yeah.
But see,
you know what? I've got a story to tell with that movie, because I remember when I was really young, I stayed up late one night.
You come across it, and what is this?
I watched this. Now, at the time, because I was so young and stupid, I thought that was like some foreign movie I was watching.
Yeah. Because they speak French and there's no subtitles for the French speaking.
It's only just the main characters that are speaking English, and most of it's all in French. But it's one of these weird early 70s movies that kind of like Don't Look Now. It's got that kind of...
And it comes out of nowhere. And
feel.
Once again, the thing I think lets it down is the jaunty theme music. I think if they'd had more of a, an ominous or a bit like a kind, almost like a kind of, like a kind of Blood and Satan's Claw, that kind of, folky music. That was the Lieutenant, but they've got this kind of, is it a song or is it upbeat, which then kind of kills the mood? Because the film itself is brilliant. It just needs that kind of, know.
But it's, I think it got remade recently.
Yeah.
Went into a crap movie, so. But I really like that, and it's just you're kind of guessing what's happening right to the end. So you think you know what's happening, but you don't, and then you find out. So I know.
Oh yeah. It's a bit like all those films. There was a film with Leslie Ann Down and Susie Kendall called Assault. And that.
I watched that on YouTube just the other day. It's a British movie, and it's set in like a girls' school or something.
A girls' school, and the girls walk across the woods, and they're attacked. But somebody's saying, "Oh, there's some sort of demon or some," but it's not quite 100% made clear. Because it's like the perpetrator's face it's lit by a red thing, but it's I think
they think they've seen a demon or something.
Yes,
but it's, and was a kind of a recognisable character actor playing a copper in Assault? Because I think I recognised somebody in there.
Oh yes, well, and that's a fact.
Was it James Cosmo?
Yes, James.
Very,
James
very,
Cosmo.
very young James Cosmo.
Yes, yeah. The script is good, and also one of the actors who plays the Doctor, as spoilers, is the actor who is it Anthony, who ended up becoming the Master in the Peter Davison Doctor.
Okay,
that's but he hasn't got his beard, so he doesn't look like the Master from the Doctor Who,
from the
80s Doctor Who.
Yeah, I quite like that one as well. But it's typical of those movies in the early 70s.
It's those late 60s, early 70s where a bit like the music. People are trying to, the Beatles are broken up and they're trying to find their way, and there's a lot of novelty records, fantastic production values.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the music, and a similar thing with the films. You've got cinematography looks absolutely fantastic. And you've got these weird little films. There's one called, is it not The Crazies? It's something with what's the one? Yeah, there's one called, is it not Terrified? Was that Susie Kendall, or was that who was in the Straw Dogs? Not Susie Kendall.
Susan George.
Susan George. There's one called with Susan George. Susan George plays a babysitter, and it's a lot of these ones all seem to get put into the mix. As I say, that kind of early 70s stuff where people are trying to find their way away from like the vampires and trying to Do
you think this kind of coincided with the changing of the X certificate in 1970 when they moved it from a 16 to an 18, and then they gave people more freedom in the British and with the X certificate, so it's they can obviously stretch it from a 16 to an 18X. They can maybe a bit more gore and a bit more titillation in it.
Well, it could be, but once again, what's lost in the mist of the times is the kind of films and kind of television of the time that people thought, right, we're going to make this film, because I suppose the social references are.
Mm-hmm.
And the social references are kind of gone, so all you're left with are these strange films. You think, well, why did this film suddenly appear? Is it because of the change of the certificate, or is it because they've been getting more television US dramas on the terrestrial TVs, BBC and ITV, that they thought, all right, let's have a kind of cash in, because that's an interesting thing about the film industry in the UK in the early 70s, because it seemed to be only film versions of sitcoms or
on the buses and
on the buses.
Blessed This House.
Alf Garnett, Blessed This House, and then going into the sex comedies, which was a kind of
confessions and
confessions.
even Carry On. One of the Carry On movies was quite saucy, even for like a Carry On movie.
Well, they had to kind of up their game, and
when it had like a dating site or something.
Oh yeah, there was
breasts in it, basically real breasts in it.
There was Carry On Loving.
Carry On Loving. I think that was the one that was kind of a bit.
Well, no, I think that was.
Was it Carry On Emmanuel?
Carry On. There was two, because usually the certificate in the UK was A and then I think Carry On England and Carry On Emmanuel, and I don't know if Carry On Behind. But maybe it's definitely Carry On England.
Is that the one with Kenneth Connor in it?
Kenneth Connor, and they were double A certificate, but which meant that I don't know if that means like a 12A as it would have been, but a lot of these certificates, because they had
Mm.
a scene where that's Carry On England's the one set in the Second World War. A mixed anti-aircraft, and a lot of somebody says, I want everybody to come out, shirtless or whatever, and all the females come out with, without any clothes on, and a lot of that stuff just doesn't sit well with the Carry-Ons. It's all about suggestion, and when you see flesh, or when you see it, just doesn't. Yeah, there's something not quite right, something seedy about it.
Do you remember a British movie in the 70s called Virgin Soldiers?
Virgin Soldiers, yes, yeah.
And it had a character called Juicy Lucy.
Yeah, and then there was the sequel, Stand Up Virgin Soldiers.
Which I never got that far.
Yeah, Robin. There's an interesting.
No, Robin Asquith, was it?
Yeah, Robin Asquith was in the second one.
Did he die when the 80s happened? Because he was in everything in the 70s, and then he just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Well, yeah. Well, once again, you make
I only know him from the 70s.
Yeah.
I can't remember him in anything from the 80s. It was just he was in everything in the 70s.
I think in the 80s, once again, I don't know whether or not these guys ended up touring. Going a film, stage tours. But he was in the Bottle Boys, which I think Jim Davison turned down. That was an ITV sitcom about the milkmen. In actual fact, and he now lives in, was it Gozo? He now lives in Malta. And on a sidebar, my brother for my 50th got me, I think, a cameo message from Robin Asquith. He clicked on it, and because it was delayed, my brother got it for free. And he was just talking about working with Sid James, during the Bless This House film. Because obviously, was it Robin Stewart who played his son in the TV series, wanted to do something else, so he didn't come for the film version. But Sally Gleason was there, and
Porridge, another TV
Porridge.
film.
Yeah, that was late 79. Whatever happened to the Likely Lads? That one. See, it's really hard to get. Are you being served? Which then came, it's just the same, but they're in Spain, which is just, it's a bit like Carry On Abroad. But it's really difficult to get a good, I mean, one of the good ones is Dad's Army, the film. Although it kind of retreads, obviously it's probably people who haven't watched the TV series, because it just retreads the first bit. It has its moments,
Back to Robin.
Yes, Robin.
I've got a movie called Tower of Evil. And I think it was called something like Snake Island or Snape Island. Snape, yeah. But it's known to us as Tower of Evil, and it's about this lighthouse. And at the beginning, Robin Asquith's in it, playing an American with a really bad American accent.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So they've obviously got these Brits to come in and play Americans, and they're putting on this really bad accent.
Well, he was in that film Horror Hospital, which he's like.
Is that Michael Gough as well?
Michael Gough again. So he's trying to be. He's like a rock star, and needs to go to like what do you call it? Like a health farm, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that thing about the American, that was it, City of the Dead. At least with the Hammer films, they acknowledge when they set a film in, say, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Never Take Sweets from Strangers? There's a few that are set in Canada, and there's the one I always get confused. It's the one that's got Sean Connery, and it's not a Hammer film, but it's set in Canada where the wee boy gets locked in the safe.
Sean Connery.
Yeah, is it Time Lock or something like that? And he plays just a Scots accent, but it's set in Canada. And that was one of his early ones,
Yeah, I was watching like Black Christmas, which was set in Canada as well, by Bob Clark.
Well, that's a deeply disturbing film.
But what they used to do as Americans is obviously film in Canada because it was cheaper, there's tax breaks. But they would put maybe 2 or 3 American actors in it and just fill the rest of the cast with Canadian actors, basically, and that's what they did. But they did that quite a lot in the 70s and 80s.
Well, that's the thing. We're talking about we're talking about portmanteau films, and one of the worst, because it's down to the production, because it was the Uncanny. Have you seen that one? Which is basically, it's 3 stories about cats.
Is that Peter Cushing?
Cushing, and it's got is it Susan Penhaligon, and it's all about for some reason it's like it's 3 stories connected with like cats. I don't know if cats are trying to take over the world. But
was a movie called Uncanny or something in the 80s about No, I'm getting confused. But there was a movie in the late 80s about like killer cats or something, or killer pussy cats or something.
Well, no, I think it was 3 stories, and it was all called The Uncanny for some reason, and it was all filmed in Canada, passing itself off as other places. And see that a good portmanteau horror, you want different productions, and but when it's there's nothing worse than watching one and it's like, I don't think this is going to get any better. It's almost like the same tone. It's the same. There's no depth to it. There's no.
One of my favourite anthology. I'm not going to say portmanteau. Sounds like an alcoholic beverage. But the Monster Club.
Oh, the Monster. See that's such an 80s thing.
But that was
really
probably
dated.
1980, was it? I think it was.
Yeah, 79.
Looks like it's got the residue of late 70s on it.
Oh yeah, probably 79, 80, and it's one of those ones where, that hasn't stood the test of time.
But the last story is really good.
Oh, that I remember watching that and thinking that I think it was the description of saying yes. And it's the music, and it's supposed to be like etchings about this ghoul that they find behind a graveyard, and they take it and they clean it up, and that's a scary one. But obviously, it's like trying to cash in a bit of like the Star Wars Cantina, But it's it's strange that sometimes the 70s stuff doesn't date. It's the early 80s stuff, like the Monster Club. That really dates
because they go into like a nightclub and you've got like B.A. Robertson singing
and a few other people saying. And I think one of the highlights was when they have the kind of the stripper who's stripping and then strips all. It's not just stripping the clothes; it then takes the flesh off, and you've just got a skeleton, behind.
And then they had like a poster of a chart of all the like interbreeding between vampires and ghouls and werewolves and wereghoul and all those girls and all this kind of stuff.
Having said that, the second most scariest, I would say maybe the first scariest one is the first story about the Wingoo or whatever it is who can kill by whistling. And it's the woman who goes and says she steals from the guy who owns the mansion, and then she says she loves him, but she doesn't really. And you can take anything.
She's setting him up, so
he's setting him up, and she's saying, "Look, have the money just as long as you say that you love me." And she says, "No, you're horrible." And it's when she walks back into, for some reason, was it Simon Ward?
I think so.
He's got a tiny wee part in that one. And
he's the partner of
he's the partner. Girl. And she comes in, and you only see the back of her head, and that's bad news in a horror movie when it's like the person hasn't turned around yet. I think, oh no, what's happening? And she turns around, and that's such a visceral, because her face has been melted, but not just melted. It's not even there, and that's a really shocking scene in the Monster Club. But then you've got the comedy one about the kind of vampire mafia, with is it Richard Johnson?
Richard Johnson.
Yeah.
What can you say about Richard Johnson? I mean, this is a guy who could have been James Bond.
Yeah,
I can't believe it, but so the legend goes.
Well, he appeared in 3 films which were kind
of spy Bond films.
Yeah, there was a 2 which were Bulldog Drummond, and then there was the other one which isn't a Bulldog Drummond thing because there was Deadlier in the Mail, and then there's the one where he's what do you call it? He's is it Diana Dors? He's kind of kidnapped, and he's Diana Dors, and he's been set up by his girlfriend, and he's quite ruthless because I think
Speaking of Diana Dors, what's the 70s movie? I think it's Jacques Palance as some sort of maniac or psycho.
Yeah, I think it's called. Is it called The Crazies or It's something called The Crazies or something, or it's not The Crazies.
But he's got like I don't know what he's doing, but he goes off on he stays at Diana Dors' house as a guest or something, and then I can't remember, but it's quite good actually. If you can, it's an early 70s movie with Palance playing a complete crazy person.
I'm sure it's called. Is it not called The Crazies? But no, not crazy. It's called something, but it's not The Crazies as in the George Romero.
No, yeah, which has obviously been redone quite a few times.
Once again, a lot of these films they've changed their name, but it's that's coming. I think I've got that on DVD. I think that's come out again on Blu-ray or 4K or whatever it is. Because there's a poster of him with swinging an axe or swinging something.
Yeah, It's quite funny. I think it's kind of like a Columbo kind of thing. I think he's murdering people.
Well, there's that, and there's another one that's got Sinead Cusack in it, and he's running a pub with James Booth, but I don't know if that's the same. No, I don't think that is.
Just having a look at see, because I haven't got the right glasses on. He was in Without Warning. That you had like Jack Palance, you had Martin Landau, and you had somebody else in that as well.
And of course, he played Dracula, which of all the people who've played Dracula, he's the one that looks like, if you've ever seen a face of a bat, he's got that kind of bat face. And originally he was going to be first choice for Scaramanga, in Man with the Golden Gun, which would have been an interesting choice. I can't find it, but it's he plays some crazy person. It's quite good. But it's one of these American actors that came over. It was a British movie, so yeah. Well, that's they came over, and usually sometimes when you look what they appeared in, Lou Grade's fingerprints were all over it because he was LWT. He was more than happy to write the check to get them over.
We need like a moronic, stupid Elon Musk type. That will just pump loads and loads of billions of pounds into and revitalise the British film industry, because basically a lot we've got some of the best directors in the world.
Well, yeah, and you see why a lot of the films, the production here,
yeah.
They've got brilliant studios and the production, and it's great, and also it's not even years ago you would have a Prestige TV or the Paycheck. They would make films in Granada. Or TV shows in Granada get big names like Tales of the Unexpected, or even before that. But if you ever watched any of the Wheel Tappers and Shunters, which was, like I say, trying to be like a working man's club, they had variety acts. Bernard Manning hosted it. But what you would notice, if you look at the crowds, you see people who were perhaps working in maybe the next studio, because it was actually filmed in a studio but made to look like a pub. You'll see people who were perhaps filming the Cuckoo Waltz, and you'll see them in the audience sitting, or you'll see people who were in Coronation Street. And I am positive there's one episode you see Telly Savalas sitting there. So whether or not, once again, he was doing like a one-off drama in Yorkshire TV on Granada, and they thought, want to come.
Maybe he was doing Horror Express or something. I don't know.
That ran from, did it run from 73 to 77 or 78? The Wheel Tappers and Shunters,
No.
But then you see there was a guy called, was it Colin Compton, who was like the compere? He would ring the bell and stuff like that. And then you see them in like Confessions at the Holiday Camp. You see all these people who were big on television, and they always crop up in these little films. Like Reg Varney left on the buses to then star in a couple of films. There was one of the best. Was it the best legs in show business? And then something, another one set in a film studio in Elm Street or whatever was like that. But But then that was, as I say, basically you only had the James Bond films in the 70s until, I suppose, Star Wars came along,
Yeah, well, that was a good chat about Night of the Demon. I forgot what movie, because we've gone off on a tangent there at the end, and I completely forgot what movie we did. Night of the Demon, 1957, an absolute classic. It's one of these movies, it's just, it's like a pair of warm, kind of well-worn slippers. You want to put it on at night, on a dark, stormy night, and then just drift to sleep with it in the background. It's one of these type of movies. Yes, I just love it.
But don't be surprised. There'll be some scenes that you think, oh my goodness, And it's interesting because around at that time it would be about flying saucers, and this stands out because it's not about flying saucers. It's not about radioactive spiders or ants. It's about, as I say,
space probe Taurus.
Space probe Taurus. Yeah, it's about runes, and it's about ancient black magic, and it's about the Twilight world.
Definitely. Well, thank you again for joining me this month, talking about another one of our favourite movies. We'll think about the next episode and what movie we'll do. We don't have any particular rhyme or reason. We just make up as we go along, and the next movie could be something completely different. So who knows? But we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.
Movie.